Hey guys, in this lecture, we'll create a 3-node Elasticsearch cluster with 2 nodes being master eligible. We'll also separate out our Kibana application onto its own instance. The communication between Elasticsearch nodes will be over SSL, and the communication between Kibana and our Elasticsearch cluster will be over HTTPS. Now, here are some steps. First, we'll create 3 Elasticsearch nodes on our GCP trial account. Then we'll also create a Kibana VM on our GCP trial account. After that, we'll install Elasticsearch on all the 3 Elasticsearch nodes and install Kibana on its own node. Then we'll generate an Elasticsearch CA and create all the certificates. This is because we'll be using self-signed certificates. If you do not want to do that, you can generate a certificate signing request and get your company's CA or a public CA to give you the certificates for your cluster. Once we've got the certificates, we'll distribute these certificates to all nodes. Then we'll configure Elasticsearch and Kibana, and finally we'll ensure Elasticsearch nodes join the Elasticsearch cluster and the Kibana node can communicate with Elasticsearch over HTTPS. So let's get started. As you guys can see, I'm inside my compute engine and on VM instances page. Here I'll click on create instance. I'll click on new VM instance from template and I'll choose ELK template and click continue. I'll change the region to US West 1. I'll keep the name as ELK1 and I'll go down to networking section, expand this and then expand networking. I'll make sure this VM is in Elasticsearch VPC and in monitoring subnet, and after that I'll click on create. Now once this VM is created, I can create 2 more. Once I've got the 3 Elasticsearch instances created, I'll click on the create instance button again to finally create my Kibana instance. I'll click on VM instance from template and again use my ELK template and click continue. Here I'll change the name to Kibana, change the region again, go down to networking, make sure it's under monitoring subnet and click create. Finally, I've got my 3 Elasticsearch instances and my Kibana instance ready. Next, we'll test connectivity to all of them. So what I'll do is, I'll first click on these 3 lines to change the column display. I don't want zones because I know all the zones therein. I don't want recommendations in use by, and I'll click OK. Now I'll change the size of my browser window to bring up my terminal. So now I've got my GCP trial account on the left hand side and my terminal for Mac on my right hand side, and I'll check the connectivity from my Mac to the external IP address of my GCP instances. So I'll type in SSH space labit at, and then I'll copy the external IP and paste and hit enter, hit yes. I'm able to log into the first instance. Then I'll open up a new tab with profile basic. Here I'll type in SSH labit at, then the external IP of the second instance and hit enter, yes. Same thing, I'll add another tab, SSH labit at, and then I'll copy the IP address of the next instance, yes. And finally I'll copy the external IP of my Kibana instance, open up a new tab and do SSH labit at and paste it here. Click yes, and now I'm able to connect to all of them. So I'll minimize this and we'll start configuring our instances. So first we'll have to install Elasticsearch on all our 3 Elasticsearch instances. So please go ahead and you can follow the same steps that I've showed you in a single node deployment. Just don't configure the elasticsearch.yml yet. Just install it and come back, and I'll do the same on these instances. After you have installed Elasticsearch on all the 3 Elasticsearch nodes, it's time to install Kibana on the Kibana node. I've already installed the public signing key and saved the directory definition. So all we need to do on this instance is sudo apt-get update and sudo apt-get install Kibana and hit enter. Now as you can see, Kibana got successfully installed on this machine. After Kibana is installed, what I'll do is I'll move on to the Visual Studio terminal so I can reference my notes while I'm configuring the services. Here on screen, I've got my Visual Studio Code window open with my notes on the left hand side and the terminal on the right hand side. And up top, I've used this plus icon to create 4 tabs, each into my individual node on the GCP account. So first, we'll start configuring the ELK1 machine. So here, I'll do sudo vi/etc/elasticsearch/elasticsearch.yml. And I'll hit enter. I'll go into insert, and the first thing I need to do is I need to set up a name for my cluster. This will have to be same across all my Elasticsearch nodes. I'll name it demo_elk. Next, I'll give a name to this node. I will call this node elk1. We can keep the path to data and log directory same. That's fine. Next, I'll go into network and I'll change the network.host value to 0.0.0.0. Now next I'll uncomment http.port. And next, we'll have to specify the seed hosts for our cluster. These are the initial hosts which will form our cluster. Here, I'll put in the private IP address of all my Elasticsearch nodes. So if I go into my GCP console, the private IPs are 192.168.1.6, 7 and 8. So that's what will go in here. After we provided seed hosts, we need to provide which nodes can be master eligible. We want ELK1 and ELK2 to be master eligible. So that's what will go in here. I'll type in ELK1 and ELK2. Now that's all for this file for now. I can save it, WQ exclamation mark. Now once I've done that, what I'll need to do is I'll need to go to user, share, Elasticsearch and bin. Now once inside bin, we can do an ls and you will see there's a utility called elasticsearch-certutil. We will use that to first create a CA and then generate some certificates for our application. These certificates will be self-signed certificates. So let's get started. First we have to generate a CA. To do that, we'll type in sudo /elasticsearch-certutil, and to generate a CA the command is CA, and we'll hit enter. We can keep the defaults and no password for the CA. This file .p12 is in path user share Elasticsearch. So I'll do an ls here to make sure this file's there. There it is. Now CA files is generated. We need to now generate the SSL certificates to be used by Elasticsearch nodes. So what we'll do is we'll go back into bin again and I'll hit up arrow to go to my Elasticsearch utility command, remove CA, and this time I will type in cert because I want to generate certificates, and to generate the certificates I have to provide a CA. I'll type in --CA and we'll copy the name of our CA-p12 file and put it here, and because the file is in its default location we do not have to provide a fully qualified path to it, and I'll hit enter. When it asks for a password for CA, we didn't provide one when we were generating the CA, so it's fine, we can hit enter. Now we can accept defaults for the certificate file as well, no password. Now this file should also be in user share Elasticsearch. So I'll go into that directory and do an ls, and this is our Elasticsearch certificate file. Now this is for the SSL. So if we go back to our PowerPoint, this is for the communication between the Elasticsearch nodes. For kibana communication, we need to create an HTTP certificate. Now in order to do that, we can cd into bin. This time I'll type in sudo /elasticsearch-certutil, and here I will type in HTTP to generate the HTTP certificates. I don't want to generate a CSR, so I'll type in no. This is the option you use when you're using a third-party CA, for example your company's CA or a public CA, but since we're using the self-signed certificates, I'll type in no and hit enter. Yes, we want to use an existing CA, so I'll type in yes. Next, it wants the path to my CA's p12 file, so I'll copy the path, which is user share Elasticsearch. I'll copy it here, is elasticsearch ca.p12, so I'll copy that here as well and I'll hit enter. Now there's no password for this CA file. Now next it asks me how long I want the certificates to be valid. Now I want the default, so I'll keep it as 5 years. Next it asks if you want to generate a certificate per node. In a production setup you might, so you'll go yes here, but for now I'll click on no and hit enter. Now it wants the host names for all the nodes, or we can provide wildcards. Now I'll show you something. For a minute I'll go to another instance. Now here we'll do sudo vi/etc/hosts to open up my host file. Now all the GCP instances have an internal DNS which looks like this. So first the host name that you provided during setup, the region they're in .c, and then the project they're in, and then .internal. What we'll do is we'll generate a certificate using star.internal. So I'll type in star to cover everything from host name .region .project, and then I'll type in internal and hit enter, and then hit enter again, and I'll go yes, that's correct. Now it wants us to provide the IP addresses of all my nodes, so I'll do that. 192.168.1.6, then 192.168.1.7, 192.168.1.8. Please note, obviously this will be different for you, so what what you'll have to do is you'll have to go to your GCP console and look at the internal IPs and provide these in this place. If these are not correct, your nodes will not join the cluster. So I'll type in enter and enter again to get out. Yes, these are correct. Now I don't want to change any options, so I'll click on no. I don't want to provide any password, so I'll click on enter and I'll accept all the defaults. And this should create a zip file in my user share Elasticsearch location. So let's go one level above and click clear and do an ls. So now we've generated one CA file, one certificate for Elasticsearch nodes, and a zip file. Now let's see what's inside the zip file. So I'll type in unzip elasticsearch.zip. It can't find unzip, so that's an easy fix. I'll type in sudo apt-get install unzip. Now once unzip is installed, we'll do the same command and attach sudo to it. Clear out of this, do an ls. Now we need to go inside this folder, so I'll do cd elasticsearch and hit ls. It has the http.p12 file. Now let's go one level above and do an ls again. There was also a kibana folder, so let's go into there and do an ls. There's an elasticsearch ca.pem file. So there's an http.p12 file and a ca.pem file that was created in this zip. So now what we'll do is we'll move all these relevant files into my /temp directory so I can download all of these and then distribute them across the nodes. So I'll first go one level above, clear, run ls. I'll do a copy elastic-certificates to copy the certificate file first to /tmp, and I'll have to add a sudo. Now next I need to copy my CA file, so elastic stack ca.p12 /tmp/ and next I need to do a sudo copy elasticsearch / the http file inside the elasticsearch folder into temp as well, and finally I need to do a sudo copy kibana and the elasticsearch ca.pem file inside that kibana folder to /tmp. Now once I've done that, I need to go inside the /tmp folder, do an ls, and what I'll do is I'll do a chmod and give full permissions to everyone on these files. So elastic star, and I'll do it using sudo, and finally sudo chmod 777. I'll do that for my http/p12 file. Do an ls-l to make sure that's done. It looks like it is. Now before we download these, we'll move the relevant certificate files for this particular node into the config directory. So let's go into etc/elasticsearch. So I'll type in sudo su. So first we'll go into cd etc elasticsearch. Here we'll create a directory called certs. Once that's done, we'll copy the SSL certificate for our Elasticsearch, which is this certificate in user share Elasticsearch, into this certs folder. So copy /user/share/elasticsearch, and the certificate is elastic certificates.p12, and we'll copy this certificate inside the certs folder. So certs/, we'll hit enter. Then let's do a cd into this certs folder. Make sure the certificate's been copied properly. That's done. Now what we have to do is let's go one level above. Here we'll again edit our elasticsearch.yml file. So I'll do a vi elasticsearch.yml, and inside this file we'll have to go right down to security, and under security we'll copy some security settings from my notes. So xpack security enabled true enables the xpack security transport SSL enabled true enables the SSL on the transport. We use the SSL verification mode as certificate, and we make sure that it's mandatory for the clients to be authenticated. And finally we'll have to provide the key store and trust store path for our elastic certificate.people file, which we just copied into our certs folder inside the Elasticsearch config directory. But before we do that, because we moved the path into the certs folder, we have to provide the fqdn of that path. So we'll type in /etc/elasticsearch/certs/elasticcertificates.p12. We copy that and paste it here as well, and now we can copy all these settings, paste them here. Now before we move on, we also have to enable HTTPS communication on our cluster. For that we will have to first enable HTTP on our cluster, and then we have to provide a path to the http.p12 file. So as we've done earlier, I'll provided the fqdn because we've changed the path. So etc elasticsearch/certs/http.p12, and copy these two settings towards the bottom of my elasticsearch.yml file, and now I can save this file. Now once we've done that, I'll copy this file to my temp folder as well, and again I'll do a chmod 777 on my elasticsearch.yml file inside temp, not this one, and hit enter. And next, let's copy our HTTP certificate into the search directory. So copy /usr/share/elasticsearch/http.p12 into etc elasticsearch certs, and let's move into the certs folder to make sure this file's there. Now let's move back to our GCP console window to download all these files. Now here on the console for GCP, I'll click on SSH next to my ELK1 instance. This will open up the SSH for this instance in a new browser tab. Now once the SSH connection's done, click on the settings button on top right and click on download file, and from here give it the fqdn, so /temp/elasticcertificates.p12 and click on download. We've downloaded the first certificate. Now next we have to download our http.p12 file, so /temp/http.p12. let's download that. Once that's done, click on the download file again. This time we'll be downloading the .pem file. So to get the name, I'll go into my temp directory, do an ls, and get the name of my .pem file here, and I've downloaded that. Now next we need to download our elasticsearch.yml file, so I'll click on download file and /temp/elasticsearch.yml, and I'll click download. Now once that's done, I can close this SSH tab and open up a new tab to my ELK2. Now once the SSH to ELK2 is open, we'll click on the settings button again, we'll click on upload file, and we'll go to the location where we've downloaded the certificates, and the first file I want is the Elasticsearch certificate, and I'll click open, and this will upload this file to home/labortraining3. And the next file I want here is the HTTP file, so I'll click on upload again and upload the http.p12 to the same location. And finally I'll upload my elasticsearch.yml, so this file. Now once we've done that, we have to upload these three files to the third Elasticsearch instance as well, so I'm going to do that now. Now once you've uploaded the files to ELK3, we have to go to the Kibana instance, do the same thing, but this time we just have to upload the elasticsearch ca.pem file. So I'll click on the settings button, click upload file, and the .pem file for Elasticsearch CA, and I'll click on open. Now once you've uploaded all these files, they've all been uploaded to the home directory of the Labbit training user or your individual user on your Linux machines. We have to copy them into the correct path. So first let's go to ELK2. Here let's first move on to home/labbit-training3, and you can see we've got an elasticsearch.yml file and two certificates files. So first let's do sudo su to become root, then we'll go inside our Elasticsearch directory. Here we'll create a new directory called certs. We'll copy our certificates into this new directory, so http.p12 into certs slash, and next is the Elasticsearch certificate, so elasticcertificate.p12 into certs. Now let's go into the certs directory to make sure they've been copied and do an ls here. That's fine. Now we need to replace our existing elasticsearch.yml file with the new file we've just copied over. So copy /home/labbit-training3/elasticsearch.yml into etc/elasticsearch, and let's go one level above and do an ls-l, and here we'll have to change a few settings inside this elasticsearch.yml file. So sudo nano elasticsearch.yml, we'll have to go down to our node.name and we'll have to change this to elk2-2, and that should be it. Now it looks like I've made a typo in node.name. We need this to be elk dash the node number, so 1, 2 or 3. So let me just double check what I've done on elk1. So here I'm on my elk1, so I'll go to etc elasticsearch and I'll do a nano on elasticsearch.yml, and I'll change this to -1 as well, and I'll save this. So now that we've corrected that, let's save this file as well and move on to ELK3. So we have to do the same things. So sudo copy /home/labbit-training3/http./elasticsearch.yml to /etc/elasticsearch. Now I've created the folder and copied all the right certificates into its path. Now what we can do is we can do a nano on our elasticsearch.yml file and we can change the node name. Now we can save this file. Now let's move on to our Kibana instance. So on Kibana, there was just one file. So home labbit training3. If I do an ls, there's only one elasticsearch ca.pem. So we'll do a sudo su. Now let's go to etc/kibana, make a new directory called certs here, and copy the elasticsearch ca.pem file from our label training directory to certs. And now let's do a nano on kibana.yml. Here, the first thing we have to do is we have to uncomment server.port. Then we have to change the server.host to 0.0.0.0. And here, where it says server public base URL, we have to provide the URL that this Kibana server is going to run on. Now, we will not do HTTPS for our Kibana's GUI interface. So what I'll do is I'll type in HTTP // I'll go to VM instances, copy the internal IP of my Kibana instance, paste it here, and we've configured Kibana to run on 5601, so I'll type that. Now once we've done that, we first have to specify our server name for Kibana, so I'll uncomment that and I'll type in demo Kibana here. And here we need to specify all the Elasticsearch instances for our queries. So basically, if you just want your queries to run on a single Elasticsearch instance, you'll have to specify the IP address of that instance. But because we want them to run on all our instances, I'm going to supply all the Elasticsearch instances here. So I'll go back to my notes and I'll copy this string from here and I'll remove this and I'll paste it and I'll correct the IP addresses. Now once I've done that, the next thing we have to do is we have to provide the path of our .pem file. To do that, we have to go to elasticsearch.ssl.certificate-authorities and I'll uncomment that. And here I'll have to supply the path to my ca.pem file. So I'll remove all that, type in etc/kibana/certs/ the name of our Elasticsearch ca.pem file /elasticsearch ca.pem. And once I've done that, I can for now save this file. Now it's time to start our Elasticsearch cluster. So now I'll go to my ELK1 machine. I'll type in systemctl start Elasticsearch and then I'll go to my ELK2 machine. Get out of here. Systemctl start Elasticsearch. I'll have to type sudo in front and then I'll go to my third machine, do the same thing. So sudo systemctl start Elasticsearch and hit enter. And let's see if the first Elasticsearch instance came up fine. Okay, seems like there was an issue. So to troubleshoot any issues, we can use general ctl -f -u and then the service name. So let's have a look. Okay, so it's failed to start the service. Another place you can go looking is under var log elasticsearch, and if you do an ls there'll be a .log file. So let's do a cat on that. It says access denied to the certificate file. So let's go back to our Elasticsearch folder. Let me clear everything, and here let's do an ls -l. Our certificate folder is root Elasticsearch. Let's go inside there and do an ls -l. Our Elasticsearch certificate has permissions rw and then nothing for the group. Now we might need to change this, so we'll do chmod, and for now I'm just going to type 777 and Elasticsearch certificate.p12, and I'll do the same thing for my HTTP certificate. Now for a production deployment, you might need to look at the permissions on this certificate, but for now let's just try and start this service with these permissions. Now it looks like it started fine this time, so let's do a systemctl status Elasticsearch. Now once that's done, we can go to the other instance and do cd etc elasticsearch. Let's do sudo su. Here let's do etc elasticsearch and then ls -l and look at the certs folder, and let's go inside that and let's look at the permissions on the certificate. Now let's look at the status on this machine. So this one is running. Let's have a look at the status on the third machine. So as you can see, if there's a permissions issue, your service might not come up. And if I go back to my first instance, all you have to do is when you run into any trouble starting up this Elasticsearch service, you can go to var log elasticsearch to an ls and look at this file, and as I've shown previously, it will give you a hint of where the error is. Now for now, I've also shown you how to change permissions on various files to sort out any issues. Now as you can see, with a permission of 755, this certificate loaded correctly. So probably what we have to do is go to etc elasticsearch and go into certs, change the permissions to 755 on this Elasticsearch certificate as well, and let's try and do the same thing for our HTTP P12 certificate, and let's try to restart this service. Now let's do a systemctl status Elasticsearch. It's running, so let's now clear out. Now next we have to generate the credentials for our Elasticsearch cluster. So we go user share Elasticsearch and bin, and inside bin, if I do an ls, there is a setup passwords file. So we'll do /elasticsearch setup passwords, and I'm going to do auto to auto generate all my passwords, and I'll go yes, and it has generated the password for this cluster for me. I'll copy these out into a file. So I've got these. And now, before I do anything, I need to go to my kibana instance and then go to my kibana.yml file. I'll do sudo su kibana file, and here I'll nano kibana.yml, and in this file I'll provide the credentials for my kibana system user. So this way we'll use password authentication for our kibana to communicate with Elasticsearch. I'll copy this and I'll save this file. Let's just start kibana. Let's do a status on this service. It's active. Now what we can do is, let's go back to our Elasticsearch instance elk1 and let's get the status of this cluster to make sure all three nodes have connected to this cluster. So I'll go to my nodes, copy the curl command, and add the username and password for elastic user to this command. So -u elastic, and then provide the password for this user and space, and I'll hit enter and change the HTTP to HTTPS. Now if you get this error when you try and connect through curl that there is a self-signed certificate in certificate chain, all you have to do is you have to tell curl to ignore the self-signed certificate. So we'll go right at top, right after curl, and put in -k and hit enter, and here you can see that our cluster has three nodes. It's called demo elk, and the status of this cluster is green. Now this is a positive response, so what we'll do is we'll copy the public IP address of our kibana instance and see if we can get to the kibana UI using this 5601, and the kibana UI is loaded. So what we'll do next is we'll try and see if we can log in using the elastic user. So I'll copy the password, type in elastic and provided the password, but never here, and I'll click explore on my own. So as you can see, our installation was successful. This is how you can create a multi-node ELK cluster. With this, we've come to the end of this lecture. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.
If you like this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.